consequences of parents being absent, reluctance of starting a family of your own because you yourself didn't have your father take account or responsibility for you. So it's not wise to bring a child into the dynamic where the family you were born into didn't have a stable foundation. Physical things that don't exist when you don't have a dad. Financial stability, the freedom to be feminine, forced independence without a safety net. Psychological and social effects. If you were once friends or acquaintances with people whose dad has been actively supportive in their lives, unfortunately, as you get older, you start to realise the disparity between you and them, and how the deck of cards you and your once friends have are in fact completely different. And thus you realise how differently you're going to have to operate in comparison to the friends, acquaintances you could once relate to. When your own dad breaks your trust by being absent from a young age, ultimately you as a child perceive the world differently to those who have had a present father. It's a sense of knowing how cold/dark life can be, especially as a young woman in today's society. The quality of a child's life depends on how well the mother is. Dads are important for maintaining support of the mother, crucial to the development of their children. Pick the father of your children wisely. According to a document written on behalf of Minnesota Psychological Association by Jared Brown, children who don't have a father in their home are more likely to associate with delinquent peers. According to fathersforjustice.org, in the UK, 1 in 3 children live without a father. According to community interest company ACT, in the UK, 2.9 million children live in a lone parent household. According to the Forgotten Role of Families report by the Centre for Social Justice.org.uk, this is far from an ideological battle. There is now an established evidence base for the widespread impact of family breakdown on both levels, poverty and the life chances of children growing up in poverty. Poverty levels for children growing up in lone parent families have almost doubled the poverty risk than children living in couple families, with 47% of children in lone parent families living below the official poverty line compared to 24% of children in couple families. When we talk about family breakdown, we don't simply mean separation or divorce. Both family structure and relationship quality are increasingly understood to have important impact on outcomes for children. We shouldn't ignore either. Now, another reference from the same source. The issue isn't simply about poverty in financial terms. Family breakdown touches on almost every area of government policy and requires a government-wide response. Reforming the structures of government to ensure every department recognises the role of families is not a structural argument. It is the starting point for recognising the role families play in every area to support the government's wider policy objectives. Tackling widespread levels of fatherlessness also needs to be seen within the context of the government's approach to social reform. According to recent research from the University of Edinburgh, children growing up in low-income households have significantly improved chances of escaping poverty where they have an active father figure at home. That's the end of the reference. Now back to what I've written. It's important to acknowledge the fact, if you, the individual who's dealt with an unavailable parent, in this case we're talking about the father, unless you have the initiative to recognise this is wrong, then men you attract will most likely model these same unavailable traits. Unless you acknowledge this and refuse to accept emotional unavailability, then the cycle will continue. When dads are non-attentive to their daughters and the mother of their daughters, undoubtedly the quality of life for the daughter is killed off. It puts women, girls, mothers and daughters in survival mode, as well as puts what should be a two-person job onto one person, the single mother. And the daughter is left to carry the burden. Men are not held to account, and they should be. At the same time, women shouldn't give men access to their womb unless she knows he has the ability to take accountability for having access to her womb. Then comes the argument of how contraception ruins this and allows men and women to not be accountable and instead head in a stick. Hookup culture. In a report done by standalone.org, respondents estranged from their parents for the reasoning of emotional abuse from mothers was 77%, and from fathers, emotional abuse was 59%. From the same report, another reason for estrangement was mismatched expectations about family roles and expectations. For this reasoning, estrangement was 65% for mothers and 55% for fathers. The report referenced above, in the book above, but the reference I'm speaking about now is the result of a collaboration between Standalone and the Centre for Family Research at University Cambridge. The report's research was conducted based on 807 respondents from the Standalone community. Side note from me. Whether we like it or not, whether it's intentional or not, being emotionally unavailable is the same as emotional abuse, as the emotional needs of the child in both cases have been abandoned, neglected and ignored. To solve the issue of emotional unavailability, we must acknowledge what emotional availability looks like and how it's implemented, why it's important for generations after us to be emotionally available. In order for this to happen, it starts with the parents. However, when basic survival needs are not met, emotional needs aren't priority, which moves me to my next point. The London 16th of July 2024 UNICEF, in its annual survey, the UK Committee for UNICEF UK warns that mounting debt, poor mental health and expensive and unavailable childcare is placing children's futures at risk, with 87% of parents' babies, toddlers and children under 5 years old saying that they were worried about their children's future life chances. So, with this in mind, how are parents supposed to acknowledge and cater to the child's emotional needs when the cost of just physical needs is overbearing for the average person? Maslow's hierarchy of needs demonstrates this issue perfectly. Alcoholic parents in relation to generational trauma. The nature versus nurture epidemic. When you start investigating why your parent is an alcoholic, you start to look at the root cause, which is often neglect or abuse from caregivers. Denial of self in the parent ultimately leads to denial of connection with child. From ages 14 to 23, I used cannabis as I lacked connection from both caregivers. Until you take responsibility for yourself and consciously decide to discontinue the cycle of emotional denial/repression and face issues head on and become sober, you gain a higher perspective on generational trauma as a whole. It is deep-rooted and not an easy obstacle to overcome, especially today when antidepressants are more readily available than regular therapy for those who need it. Therapy is also expensive. Poverty is a contributor to addiction, and yet regular care and attention, e.g. resources, are needed to tackle the disease of addiction, yet many in the toxic cycle of addiction don't have the access to resources, and so the cycle continues. Let's first talk about why people become addicts. Life has hurt them. As a result of this, they numb themselves. There's a pain the person does not have the tools to deal with, and so they resort to external coping mechanisms. Externally, they are disconnected to family and associates. Internally, they are disconnected from themselves. as they want to be numb from the pain they themselves have experienced or are experiencing. You may ask the question, why is it important to nip addiction in the bud? Well, according to LA County Department of Mental Health, children of alcoholics are about 4 times as likely as the general population to develop alcohol problems. So actually, to solve the issue of alcoholism, someone has to want to acknowledge there's a problem and want to break the toxic cycle. At the end of the day, a parent cannot pour from an empty cup. So, if a man's cup is empty, avoid having children with him. This helps avoid the cycle of degeneracy and poverty. There's a bunch of characteristics you should look for in a man before choosing him to be the father of your children. These include emotional intelligence, financial literacy, cooperativeness, and self-awareness. If you don't consciously look for these traits in the father of your children, it is ignorance, resulting in child abuse. Also, abusing the authority you have over the child. How do you elude this conclusion, you may ask? Well, a family will break down if a parent is unhealthy and not self-aware. When this happens, it causes a single-parent home. All the statistics show children in single-parent homes are more likely to suffer poverty as a blanket term for a range of issues. Poverty is very bad. All parents should try and avoid single-parent homes when they can. Being educated on the topic in the first place is usually a better prevention tool than not being educated on the topic, as well as people actually caring about themselves first, then their children, as like I said previously, you can't pour from an empty cup. A way a person can actively care about the life chances for their children and their future generations is informed, careful partner selection, vetting a man before he's the father of your children. Lastly, by no means least, as the mother, you must value yourself. Inconsistent parental figures, low effort parents. When the parent takes no responsibility and isn't held to account by those around them, relationship dysfunction / breakdown is detrimental for women without fathers because they have no one in their corner to back them up when things go wrong. No one there physically, emotionally, spiritually, and as a result of those 3, financially, which is why some women are hesitant to even be in a relationship or start a family of their own. How to solve this problem? Stop giving men who lack ability to take responsibility and accountability access to your womb. According to University of New York study by Emmanuel Botew, the impact of step-parenting on the health, behaviour and development of school children. On average, children who have step-parents are 3.5 percentage points more likely to have anxiety issues and depression compared to children who live with 2 biological and/or adoptive parents. According to a study done by the University of Edinburgh, differences in mental health between adults in step families and first families. Most partners of step parents will have been single parents before they formed a step family with their partner. Single parenthood has been linked to an increased risk of poor mental health, and this heightened risk may continue after previously single parents enter a new step family. Side note from me, I would argue step parents should not be step parents. Instead, they should adopt, as this emphasises the importance of taking responsibility for the family they are entering.